We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully your day is going well. This is going to be a TikTok Live as well as a Rational Boomer podcast. It's going to be one of those days. I got to admit, I've got a little bit of a cold, just sniffles in my nose. Not a really big cold, but, it's a pain in the ass no matter what. We're going to have some of the regular or usual suspects on, people like TJ the plumber and Rebecca and maybe some other folks. But we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. It is a Saturday night, but still a lot of stuff going. Some weird stuff is going on. There's a lot of rumors running around the internet at this point about RFK Jr. and some blackmail stuff, about Mike Johnson and some app stuff, and of course all the things with Donald Trump. Mike Hegseth has this whole problem with Signalgate. And now something else has just come out that apparently he's got his wife going to meetings with him, which is decidedly a no-no. This is not something that you would want to do. This is illegal. And I'm getting a weird feeling about this. I just brought in TJ the plumber. Hey, TJ, how you doing?
Good, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. With all the stuff that's going on, I'm going to give you a take on something, and I'm curious as to what you think. We're hearing about all this stuff going on. We've got Signalgate, and that's not going away, and that's quite a problem for Donald Trump and the Republicans. They really can't wash it away or sane wash it like they've tried to in the past. We've got a rumor of some scandal coming out about RFK Jr. Don't know if that's going to be true or not. We heard that Mike Johnson, there's a rumor of him being on kind of an illicit app that would be very embarrassing to him. But we're seeing a lot of stuff that are happening to Republicans behind the scenes. Here's my take on it. These Republicans are terrified of Donald Trump. They won't confront him, but they see the problems he's creating in this country and for the Republican Party. Could it be Republicans in the background trying to sabotage Donald Trump and his entire cabinet just to shut this down without being exposed as the ones that are doing it? Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. They can shift the blame, especially come midterms. If the Democrats gain seats in the House, they can. The Democrats are going to try to go for an impeachment on Donald Trump because he's an easy mark now, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they can basically shift the blame on the Democrats and get rid of the problem. That's the road I think they're going down.
Yeah, I kept thinking, and you've kept thinking, and Eric's thought about this too, that at some point the Republicans are going to get tired of all the losing, realize it's going to impact them in the midterms and maybe even 2028. So he becomes a liability, Donald Trump does, instead of a plus. And that we would think, well, they would push back at this point. We've got enough out of Donald Trump. We'll push him back. We'll impeach him and such. But that doesn't account for how cowardly these fucking Republicans are. It seems right in line with how they do business that they would try to do it from undercover.
Yes.
Try to blame it on the Democrats, but be the ones that are forcing this. It's like when we have these protests and there's violence, like with George Floyd and stuff. Everybody talks about the violence with the George Floyd riots, but it was all started by Republicans. Right. This is more a Republican tactic than it is a Democratic tactic.
Well, they're shitting the RNC is shitting their pants right now. And,
oh yeah.
And you mentioned not today, but the previous day, something that I texted you about. A House seat, or a Senate seat rather, in the state of Pennsylvania.
Right.
The Republican was plus 15, and that seat was plus 15 Trump in the election, and they lost to the Democrat. Not by a lot, but that seat hasn't been held by a Democrat in like 136 years. So
right.
So now they're saying that there's a lot of energy going down in Florida for Tuesday's election, and the Republican that's holding that seat is, they never had to campaign or never had to do anything because it was solid, right? It was a solid red seat. So they didn't have to do jack shit. They just knew that they were going to win. But now I guess the incumbent's shaking in his boots because he knows that they're vulnerable and there's a lot of energized people that are going to come out and vote. And the reason why is that, generally speaking, in special elections, particularly with Republican voters, they don't turn out.
Right.
And the one thing that the Democrats do right is in special elections and midterm elections, they do energize people to get out and vote. So they're worried. They're worried that they're going to lose control of the House.
Well, they are very worried, and Donald Trump himself is worried. He had Elise Stefanik going to be the UN ambassador.
Yep.
And then that was going to put her seat up in the House, up for a special election at some point down the road. And he said, Elise, we're going to keep you in the House, which was really fucked up because when she was leaving the House and she was going to be the UN ambassador, which she was probably pretty excited about, she had to resign all her leadership roles. So now he basically not only took her out for his own benefit, but he gave her a demotion. So this has got to be one pissed off representative.
Yeah, absolutely. They're backpedaling so fast. They're so worried that they could lose that seat that they, that was his pick. That was his go-to person, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, we're not gonna have her. It's it's pretty comical if you ask me. I mean, they're running scared more than they ever were.
Yeah, they really are. Rebecca is with us now, and Rebecca, what's funny about these people? They're all of a sudden getting nervous about losing seats, and worried about Elise Stefanik and whoever else they've taken out of the House. Mike Waltz was one of the ones in Florida that's up for the special election. You're just now figuring out that might be a problem when you have a thin margin in the House of Representatives. Somebody didn't tell Donald Trump that, hey, don't grab people from the House. That's dumb. And now they're just realizing it seems kind of stupid, doesn't it, Rebecca?
Oh, it absolutely seems stupid. And I'm so glad that what's his name, James Andrew Malone, won that election in Pennsylvania and set that precedent. And it makes that emboldens everybody. Things like that emboldens us all to do the right thing. That everybody in Florida, vote for those two Democrats. No matter what you have to do to get out there and vote, get out there and vote for them.
Right.
And there's another one I think in New York, right?
I was ashamed of Pennsylvania because of the election, but now I think we're redeeming ourselves now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the one in New York is off now because Elise Stefanik, that would have been her seat.
Oh, right.
And now she's going back to the House. But it's funny. Both of you and I and Eric have been talking about this. That when Donald Trump starts fucking up, it's going to affect their midterm elections or even the special elections. And they're just now, we've been talking about this for 4 months. Yeah. And now they're just going, hey, this could fuck us up. We got to be careful with this. How slow do you have to be?
Well, they were pretty fucking short-sighted. I'll agree with you on that. I mean, for them to just wake up and realize that, like, they're out of touch with reality.
They completely are. They were riding the high horse and they didn't even think about consequences
at
all.
Yeah, they were hanging on Trump's coattails, thinking that everybody's loving what Trump is doing, and then all of a sudden they got hit with a concrete block across the face. I mean, it's really. I mean, it's funny. It really is. They're shitting their pants right now.
They absolutely are, and they're dealing with somebody in Donald Trump. I did a TikTok about this, and I'm curious as to what you think. They always talk shit about Joe Biden. Doesn't know where he is. Doesn't know what he's saying. Can't complete a sentence. Okay. Uh-huh. Donald Trump has really proved to be a little out of the loop. Four soldiers go missing in Lithuania. No clue. I hadn't heard that. That's news to me. Or with the Signalgate thing. First thing he said is he hadn't heard about it. And then he talks about it being the fault of the journalist, which isn't true, and then the fault with the app. I mean, this guy doesn't seem to know anything about anything. He's off golfing all the time. We found out he spent $26 million to date this term on golfing. Who do you think's running this term on golfing? Who do you think's running the fucking country? Because it ain't Donald Trump.
I have a theory on that. I think that they purposefully only give his staff and the cabinet purposefully give him limited information. And the reason why they do that is because they don't want him to go out on a press conference and go out on a wild tangent and fuck everything up. They know he's the master of disaster, right? He's the master of disaster. So if they give him too much information, then he's going to go out and run his mouth and make it even worse. So I really think that they retract a lot of things that they tell him.
Is that give them too much rope, they'll hang themselves?
Yeah, they know that if you give... Yeah, exactly. Rebecca's exactly right. If you give Donald Trump the rope, he will hang himself every motherfucking time.
Well, that's a good point, and I understand that to an extent, but let me ask you this. If it's about him having too much information and saying something stupid and something fucked up and hanging himself, if he's being protected now, how fucking bad would it be if they weren't protecting this motherfucker? Because he does that very thing every day.
Right? Yeah, and how much can they actually protect him with social media these days? It's not like they can stop him from being on social media.
Yeah, true
like,
social.
We all know about it. How does he not know about it?
You're absolutely right.
But the question is, does he understand it? That's the question.
No, and Mike, I have to call you out on something. You said that he's out of the loop. I think that was a little tame for you to say he's out of the loop. Maybe. Even if he's out of the loop on freaking everything. Like, he's batshit freaking crazy, lost his mind.
Yeah, he is. Well, they're talking about new algorithms on TikTok and people getting banned and stuff. Maybe I'm a little gun shy. Not really. I'm not really gun shy. But I got somebody we're going to bring up here.
Cool. I hope it's not Leslie, I run to Jesus.
Hey.
No. It's I Am the Marines.
I am the Marine. That is my profile name because anywhere I go, they're like, oh, well, where's your husband? I am the Marine. I'm not married.
Right, there you go.
No reason for you. So that's the story behind the screen name. But
so what's on your mind?
Oh, Signalgate. And it has been since I heard, because when I was a young Lance Corporal, email was just really being introduced, and I'm that old, I'm aging myself. But when I was pregnant, I got called up to the company office to work because jumping out of planes during pregnancy is frowned upon.
I imagine, yeah.
And I accidentally sent an email about the Family Fun Day at Lake O'Neill on Camp Pendleton to the wrong Staff Sergeant Smith, Christopher. And I was brought up for charges on NJP and received a page 11, which is like more than an ass chewing, but not something that was going to end my career at that time.
Wow.
But can lead to more disciplinary action. I was made an example out of on the importance of making sure that everyone in the email message has need to know, and the charges. I was brought on charges because there was date, time, and location of where civilians were going to be, and it was sent to someone that did not have need to know because that Staff Sergeant of Marines was in a different unit.
Wow.
I was
what the heck?
Young, pregnant, and lost time, and like I could have been promoted earlier had it not been for that, but because technology was so new, they made an example out of me and set me up for NJP.
Well, tell me this: when you saw what happened with Signalgate, what was your immediate reaction to finding out what actually happened?
Furious.
Really?
Furious.
I mean, in your mind, this is classified information that should not be disseminated this way and in this reckless way.
Not in my mind, according to military standard operating procedure that has been this way since we are. Okay, sorry, I'm going to get so aggravated.
No problem. Go ahead.
Do it.
Security is pounded into us to the point where when we were about to deploy, we would hold, safety stand downs and everything, and even bring the spouses in to explain to them what kind of information could be shared, could not be shared, where they could share it. If you go to my page, I just did the green eggs and ham, but it's, OPSEC and ham for those that don't understand.
Yeah.
The amount of carelessness. I mean, think about it. All of these top officials, the Vice President of the United States of America, didn't even check who was in the group chat.
That's the weird thing. If I'm head of security, whether it be the DNI or the the National Security Advisor, you might want to check that ahead of time before you start chatting about this bullshit in this text message where they shouldn't be in the first place. This was just completely sloppy.
Right. Well, isn't that the point though? Like this nice woman sent an email accidentally and got it admonished for her position. Meanwhile, the head of basically the military did something that totally violated national security, put our soldiers and our airmen at risk, and Donald Trump says, "Oh, it's no big deal." It is a big deal.
It
Like-
absolutely would have been a big deal. Think about it. If that journalist, the editor-in-chief of that major publishing corporation, didn't have the integrity and the intestinal fortitude to do what was right.
Yes.
Okay, think about catching a multi-millions-dollar drone. If they could have intercepted that and reverse engineered the information that was collected in that drone, do you understand what kind of national security risk that would have put us in?
That would have been crazy. Here's the thing. I was telling TJ before you came on, I said there's enough stuff going, and it keeps going against RFK Jr., against Mike Johnson, against Pete Hegseth, that it's almost like the Republicans on the down low are trying to knock these people out because they know what kind of problem there are. We know about Signalgate, but I'm curious as to what you think about this latest revelation about Pete Hegseth. Apparently, his wife is attending these classified meetings too.
Oh.
I mean, who the fuck would do that?
There were two situations that have been brought to light where Pete Hegseth had his spouse in meetings where confidential and secret information was being shared. That is highly court-martialable.
Yeah.
And he is the Secretary of Defense.
What does this do to the rank and file? People who were in your position at the time you were in the Marines. If something like that were to happen at the highest level, at the Secretary of Defense, how do the regular folks, the decent folks in the military, respond to that? Maybe it's something you couldn't ever imagine back then.
Exactly. There is no way you would ever imagine that the Secretary of Defense would do something so heinous that any other leader of Marines would go up on a competency review board for and lose automatically.
Right.
Yeah.
You can never imagine General Mattis having made such a monumental fuck up.
Hell no.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not just using General Mattis because I'm a Marine and, that's Mad Dog Mattis, but because of the skill and the understanding. And you think Pete Hegseth, when you look at him just as a man, one, he was only a major. That's like middle management as far as officers are concerned.
Right.
Two, he's never had control of a budget. Even a tenth of a percentage as large as the military's, and he's bankrupt several.
Yeah.
He's the Secretary of Defense in charge of the entire military, and just a couple years ago wrote a book about how women shouldn't be in the military, which I don't know if you could tell by my voice, but that's a little fucking offensive to me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what do you think if we had the best world here, what should happen with Pete Hegseth? Besides the fact he should have never been appointed to this, he should have never been approved at it. Well, what do you do now? I mean, here's the problem. Here's the guy that's in charge of everything, and he can almost do whatever he wants because Donald Trump is on his side.
Go ahead and Google Pete Hegseth's commentary on Hillary Clinton's emails. That's exactly what should happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's this is what I've said about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you can say all the things he's going to do, but guaranteed 100%, no matter what happens, he's going to fuck up over and over again because that's just his history. And because he hired these people like a Pete Hegseth who's not qualified, they're going to fuck up too. I mean, running an organization like the U.S. military, there's a lot of rules and regulations, and this dumb fuck is more like a frat boy and just wants to do whatever he wants to do and thinks he can now because he's in charge. The sad thing is, at this point, it seems like that's the case, and that's what's troubling.
Okay, from a military standpoint and military readiness, because I do want to address Pete Hegseth, because you touched on Donald Trump surrounding with this. Pete Hegseth's personal views are coming to light in a way, and this was something that was brought up in the confirmation hearings and things that he wrote about in his book. The shaved chit issue. I know this is one of the big ones, but because it affects mostly African American men that have the shaved chits, the no shave chits. This is a very underhanded way to clear the military of all of the quote unquote wokeness and opposition that Donald Trump and any military movement that would go against the law. I'm just going to put it like that.
Right.
He doesn't want to face anyone that might say, "Hey, no, this isn't right." And so that's why he's like, all the woke, and he even uses the word Democrats, woke Democratic military leaders, like, you don't want someone to tell you, no, you can't do that, it's against the law. No, you can't do that, it's wrong.
Well, and the way they're trying to divert this whole thing is so freaking lame. You get an announcement that, they're going to punish a lower level staff member for putting this person in the in the chat. Well, as far as I know, given that it's so casual, I'm guessing that Mike Waltz is the one that did it. And here's another story I've heard, and again, I have no verification of it, but it's interesting nonetheless. Mike Waltz is the one to put this together. Now, whether there was a staffer who added this guy or not, I don't know. But some people might think it's intentional, and here's why. Some people think that there's, within this group of Donald Trump's cabinet members, maybe a mole of sorts. They're seeing how bad it is, and they're trying to leak out information. Like this new revelation with Pete Hegseth and his wife. It's weird that came right after Signalgate. But there's some talk that there are some hackers out there that can go through a normal process. They found Pete Hegseth's email address, and they're claiming that it is a .ru, which is a Russian email address, that Marco Rubio had an RU email, which would be Russian. But they also said that they found Mike Waltz's Venmo. Again, I don't know if this is true, but if it is, it's fucking pretty damning. But you know how it is on Venmo. If you don't cover it up, you can see everybody that's paid you or you pay them, right? Mm-hmm. Apparently on this Venmo, if this is true, there are quite a number of journalists in his Venmo. Now, if this is true, this might suggest that Mike Waltz is somebody who's kind of a mole of sorts under Donald Trump. And I wonder if he's not trying to cover that up more so than whatever fuck up he made.
Well, just the fact that they're using things like Signal and
Yeah.
Venmo and things that are that public are kind of damning as it is, isn't it not?
Hey, you know what? I want to ask you something. So, Mike, your email address is rationalboomer@gmail.com, yes?
Right.
And I have a Gmail email address, and Rebecca has a Gmail address. Why
Right.
in the fuck would anybody need to make a Russian email address?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Why?
Very good question.
Why? We can use Gmail, we could use Yahoo, we can use Outlook, we can use all these things. Why would we need to make a Russian email address? It just seems very suspicious.
You know what I'm surprised by?
I just signed my business up for a new website and email, and I get 1,000 emails with it. It cost me $900. So, like, why would we need to use Russian email? It's a very good point.
What I'm a little surprised of with somebody like Pete Hegseth, this frat boy dipshit, that I'm not so much surprised that it's a Russian email. I'm surprised that the handle of the email isn't hot guy, big wiener guy at ru.com.
Yeah.
Trump already had that one taken, I think.
I suppose, yeah. I
No,
suppose.
mushroom wiener was. He used mushroom wiener. That's what he used. Right?
Okay.
And the unseriousness of it, like, we can joke only because that journalist had integrity.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the only reason we can joke about this.
Thank
But,
God.
Yeah.
even if it were an understaffer, I wanted to touch on that. Even if it were some low level, wet behind the ears, 19-year-old kid working for free everyone in that, they are not denying that that was their conversation. They are not
Right.
denying that if you don't have the situational awareness to notice the names on like a 15-person thing, and the fact that they even addressed that it could be leaked in the conversation. This could be leaked and we would look indecisive. They addressed the fact that this information could be leaked, so they knew it was a possibility.
Yeah.
They were
just
on
by-
Signal.
Yeah.
Yeah, by virtue of them being on Signal, that's the infraction. It's not who got on or how they got on. They chose an unsecured app to carry on this conversation. What I find the most disturbing about this is the tone of that chat. It was almost like a bunch of Green Bay Packer fans got together and were cheering on what was going on. Yeah, we got him. Here's a fist emoji. It's just distasteful.
Decorum, professionalism, and then, how are we not trying to offend everyone in the world? Oh, those, UK leeches. Like, are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
You're offending our allies, people that have been our allies. Like, come on. What are you doing? What are you doing? They're blowing up our country from the inside out, and this is at the highest levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am the Marines. Thank you very much for coming on. It's always good to hear from somebody who's served and has a different perspective than some dumbass like me who's never served. But even I know what they did is pretty fucked up. But I just appreciate the fact that you can verify that.
Oh, toddlers understand this. Like,
Yeah.
but pardon me.
That's all right. I got a cold too.
Touch on that because, I'm here. My dad's and he's retired Navy, and me being retired, we were just looking at each other like mind-boggling how epic of a screw up this is, and how there's still veterans out there that are supporting Trump and Hegseth, and they will make up the mental gymnastics it takes to support this or to not be enraged and still call yourself a patriot is ridiculous. But
Where the where the stupidity comes in here is if they just said, whoops, we fucked up. God, we won't do that again. It would be over. But they can't do that. They can't admit they're wrong, and they've got to try to cover it up or divert or distract from it. That's what's getting them in trouble more than anything.
Oh, and like, oh, who are you going to believe? The Secretary of Defense or this, bullshit reporter, blah, blah, blah. The one that has the proof, the one that brought receipts. We don't have to believe him. We don't have to trust him. He's showing it to us.
Right,
right.
So.
Absolutely. Well, I am the Marines. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me. Always appreciate it. Enjoy your day.
All right. Thank you very much.
I wanted to bring something up real quick in between guests. Yeah. I haven't verified this myself yet, but I saw some reporting about this. And part of Project 2025, they encourage the Republican participants in whether they're in Congress or in the cabinet or whatever, to use the Signal app to purposefully circumvent anything being recorded by the National Archives. That's part of it. And I haven't personally went in and read to see if that's true, but I wholeheartedly believe that is true. And that's where this came from.
Well, that's working out well for them, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they fucked up because they're stupid.
Yeah, no question. I'm accepting some people here that I'm not familiar with, so keep your fingers crossed.
He's been making good comments, so I'm down with this guy.
Okay, hey guys, cool. Not too bad. What's on your mind today?
Oh, not too much. I've been going on a couple of lives talking about this Signalgate stuff all week, it seems like, and it just doesn't end. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
We need to keep it in the narrative.
Yeah. So just to give you guys some background about myself personally. So I work in threat intel and cybersecurity, and from 2012 to 2019, I was a defense contractor for the government, helping work on cybersecurity policy and audited cybersecurity policy and systems for the GAO under a framework they call FISMA. So intimately familiar with DoD policy, federal law, and executive orders and actions required for agencies for secure communication and handling of classified information. So that's been my week has been me going into mostly enemy territory, or not enemy territory, that's probably the wrong way to phrase it, and dispelling the rumors and fallacies that are being spewed over there.
Oh, so you do the same thing TJ does, and
basically
in a different way.
An agitator. So what do you think the military is doing now for security? They're just downloading Norton, or what the fuck?
I mean, there is a use case for Signal in the government. It was previously authorized by a number of agencies, but it was authorized by the CIA and intelligence community through internal memoranda back in 2020 and 2021. But it's not an agency-wide thing, right? Like they can authorize it and they can authorize exceptions for their own agencies, but it's not for business as usual and general business for senior leadership in the DoD or executive branch agencies. It was for human intelligence resources and sources that reside in foreign nations or high-value individuals who reside in foreign nations to use if the primary communications channels were unavailable. That's the only time it was supposed to be for use. And back in 2023 and 2024, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is a part of DHS, they basically oversee the guidance on cybersecurity for the federal government, but they do not create law. They do not create policy. They basically create guidelines and guidance and push it to the agencies and departments to actually implement their own policies. They came out and said, you can use Signal as a last resort, manner of last resort. So every agency was like, you know what, we should evaluate this. And only a couple of them actually authorized it as a measure of last resort. DoD did not. DoD, they do still, I will say this, DoD still uses it for some combat readiness and computer operation, but it's not supposed to be used regularly and for normal business function. They're supposed to use JWICs and secure communication channels.
So they were basically saying that of all of the platforms out there, Signal is probably the most secure to use in case of emergency?
Well, it wasn't just Signal. It was pretty much any end-to-end encrypted messaging app. So it could have been Signal, it could have been WhatsApp. Even iMessage would have qualified because iMessage is technically end-to-end encrypted as long as you don't have a cloud backup. But really, it was pointed at Signal and WhatsApp.
But would you say that what was done in that particular chat, regardless of if
Yeah.
Signal is usable in some, would you say that was inappropriately used in that
Correct.
circumstance?
Yep, correct. Because there's agencies on there that haven't published any policy on Signal that were using it. So, I mean, the Executive Office of the President certainly does not have policy for the use of Signal. The Department of Defense does not have it for anything other than mission readiness and mission operations when other channels like JWICS Secure Communications are unavailable. So that's like if you can't get access to the JWICS network when you are abroad or you are unable to VPN or do what you have to do to get to the DoD network, that was the only time it was acceptable. It's not acceptable for use by senior leadership for mission planning and readiness for strategic communications with other agencies or just normal policy and framing and messaging discussions like that.
Well, there was an interesting response from Tulsi Gabbard and John Radcliffe. First of all, John Radcliffe thought he was going to be slick. If you listen to what he said in those hearings, he would say, I said nothing that was classified. He wasn't saying that there wasn't classified information in this chat. He said, but I didn't do anything wrong. I thought that was pretty chicken shit. And then Tulsi Gabbard pawned it off and said, well, Pete Hegseth is the one that is responsible for classifying these things. So she was handing the ball over to Pete Hegseth. Are those kinds of excuses valid if you're in this situation?
No, they know better. So they're supposed to immediately identify that it's not a classified channel approved for the type of information that Pete Hegseth was sharing, and they should bring it up in the chat or bring it up to the people that are involved and let them know that they have to take it over to probably JWICS or another authorized system. In the federal government, to be used for specific use cases like what they were using it for with Hegseth and Waltz and Gabbard and everybody else in there, that use case isn't authorized for use. What I mentioned before about the specific situations it can be used in, that's where it's been authorized. And to be able to use any system to store, process, transmit classified information, or even controlled unclassified information, it has to have an authority to operate by the government. That's a law under law, FISMA law.
Given what I was talking about before with this particular chat, I was a little disturbed by the tone of the chat and how they were handling it. Is it unusual for security leaders like this, the big shots, to get into a chat, whether it's in an approved app or an unapproved app, and take this tone where it's rah rah and go team and here's a fist emoji and a fire emoji? Did that tone of how they were talking in there seem weird to you?
Yeah, it's definitely unusual. I mean, the DoD especially prides itself on, tradition and norms, right? So like not signing off any messages without very respectfully is very strange in a chat. And it was a very much like a bro-y conversation that's
right.
not typically, something that's like a formal planning or strategic conversation that they were having in there. So, I mean, it's very, very strange to see it unfold like that. And beyond that, there's definitely the tone that they're talking with, they're very much conveying that they know that they shouldn't probably be talking about certain things in there. And I think, especially in the hearings, the actual like testimony to Congress, it's very clear, like by the backtracking and the stumbling over their own words, that they're just looking for ways to save their own butts, even if it means throwing like Pete Hegseth or Mike Waltz under the table, Gabbard and Radcliffe specifically.
One other question about that chat that I found weird, and I'm not an expert, so I don't know, but in my mind, I thought, if you're going to bomb another country, the president is generally in the loop, pretty close, maybe sitting in a situation room or something. But the words they used in that chat were, yeah, I'm pretty sure Donald Trump is giving it a go on this. As far as I heard, he's giving it a go. And at that moment, Donald Trump is driving into a golf course to play golf. It just seems like Donald Trump is uninvolved in this whole thing. They mentioned it in passing, and he said he gave us the go. That seems out of out of
Yeah, that
norms.
is not all that uncommon. So the president is generally left off of those types of conversations. He gets briefed, and then he provides the go no go status from the top level, and then that gets communicated down. But he's usually left off those direct communications channels for plausible deniability, just in case something were to go wrong. He's kind of insulated from anything that might go wrong in there. But you're right that it's coming from a third party, and nobody's verifying the order if the president has been fully briefed or fully aware of what's going on. In fact, the way J.D. Vance is talking about the president's position on Europe, maybe he's not fully aware of what's going on. And also, it came from Stephen Miller, and it didn't come from his actual chief of staff, who is delegated authorities.
Well, that's the thing. I wasn't expecting he'd be in the chat, but the idea, I would think you'd want a verified, validated, go authorization from the president, and the way they worded it, they were like covering their ass. As far as I heard, it sounded good, and that seems to be pretty lackadaisical for bombing another country. I mean, if they can do that for Yemen, can they do that for China? We're going to bomb China, and I think Donnie's cool with it, and then just do it. The whole thing seems to be so fucking sloppy.
It is, and there's supposed to be. Obviously there's Freedom of Information Act, right? You wouldn't, if it's national security information, strategic planning, military planning operations, stuff like that, you're not going to get that through a Freedom of Information Act request, but there is still the Federal Records Act. This way here, that if something did go wrong, they have the auditability and the accountability to back up, who made the decisions and whether or not it was actually run up through the chain of command to the the commander in chief, and he gave the okay. So that's why it's supposed to happen over secure communications channels that store those records and maintain those records just in case anything bad happens. Especially, I mean, you would want this if you were the White House counsel, right, to protect the president. But the fact that they're using automatically disappearing messages in the Signal app to obfuscate what they're talking about kind of defeats the purpose of all of those laws that they're supposed to be following.
Right.
How important do you think it was when the judge handed down this decision that you've got to preserve all these chats, especially if they automatically disappear anyway? I'm presuming the journalist has preserved it, but that suggests it's a pretty big concern from the courts that they did this if they're asking them to preserve this chat.
Yeah, it's a big issue, right? This is something that's happened in the past. Like administrations have had off the books communications channels before, and it's come back to bite them, going all the way up to the Supreme Court with rulings on transparency. And part of the reason why FOIA is so important and the Federal Records Act is so important, it's literally meant to be enforced and incentivize people to comply with it. If they're not afraid of the law, if they're not afraid of the courts imposing these rules on them, then they're going to continue doing it. So that begs the question, what other Signal chats are there out there that we can't get records from? And then the fact that they're using these systems and automatically deleting records without preserving them for any sort of legal battles or just for records retention with NARA as required by law.
Right.
It creates 100,000 questions, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, we just talked about that before you came up here.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, we can presume that these kind of chats have happened before. This wasn't a one-off. It just doesn't make any sense that it was a one-off. But my contention about Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and everybody else that Donald Trump appointed, they're incompetent. Mm-hmm. So inevitably, there's going to be fuck-ups. This was not a big fuck-up because we had a journalist that had some integrity. But how bad could things be if they fuck up again, which they most certainly will, and we don't get as lucky as well as a journalist doing that? And then when you take into fact that Witkoff, Trump's envoy to Russia, was in Russia while he was on the chat, and there were two guys in Saudi Arabia while he was on the chat. I mean, that exposes. Who cares if the journalist found out? Russia had to find out. Saudi Arabia probably had a way to hack this. I mean, they're on their fucking personal phones.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's a big issue, right? These laws exist for a reason because somebody fucked up in the past and did something bad. So that's why law and regulation generally exists to begin with, outside of corporate regulations, which get lobbied to no end. But this is exactly the type of the question that needs to be asked. Is if they're this incompetent to add a journalist of all people, an editor-in-chief and journalist, who else might they add? Who else is in their contact list that they might accidentally pull into a sensitive chat on national security or state secrets, right? This is the type of conversation. This is the stuff that these laws and rules are meant to mitigate. And the fact that we've got people like Pete Hegseth, who his response to this is not to like mea culpa or own up to it. It's to push back and gaslight people on what is actually going on in that channel. It's 100% classified information. First of all, like if anybody says it's not, it's 100% classified. Like we don't even, the flights where they're deporting people, you can't even get the tail numbers of the planes. That's classified information. And this is much worse than that. So anybody trying to gaslight you and tell you it's not classified information, they're 100% wrong.
Well, Pete really fucked up when he got off his plane and he got interviewed about it because he totally lied and deflected the whole entire thing.
Yep. Yeah. And the funny thing is, he is the Secretary of Defense. He has original classification authority for the Department of Defense delegated by the president. So he could actually declassify that information if he wanted to. There's in the DoD, it's a much more formal process. You can't just do it by waving a magic wand or thinking about it like Donnie did with his bathroom reading material. But yeah, he could have done that, but he didn't. So there's not even a leg to stand on if he came out and said, "Oh, it's declassified," because DoD has formal declassification procedures.
What do you think about this new revelation that came out? It seems like someone's going after Hegseth. They want him gone, and I presume it's a Republican more than it's a Democrat. But Hegseth needs to go, of course, with Signalgate. But now this new revelation came out that he was going to classified meetings and brought the wife with him, brought the little lady with him. How stupid is that?
Pretty stupid, especially if there's sensitive information. She does not have the same need to know that. Obviously, her husband, as the Secretary of Defense, has. So that's where his entire clearance and access level to information is specific to him. His wife is not read in on this stuff. So she being there is what we call a data leak, right? It's a classified information leak, a spill event. Same with the Signal chat. It's a spill event, and there should be
another whiskey
procedures.
But I question how it's allowed. Like, isn't there brass in the DoD that says, "Hey, listen, your wife can't be in this meeting. I'm sorry."
Nobody will go against Donald Trump, so they're not going to.
Yeah, but it's not Trump's call. This is Pete Hegseth. Like, Donald Trump has no idea that this is going on.
Of
obviously,
course not. But
he doesn't.
Pete Hegseth's going to say, they yelled at my wife and kicked her out of a meeting.
Yeah, but let's be real. Like, if there's a meeting at the DoD and Hegseth shows up with his wife, someone in the brass should say, "Hey, listen, your wife's got to wait in the lobby." That's just the way it is. Like, you can't. Like, is it? I mean, I'm not putting it past them, but is it that corrupt to the point where they're allowing someone that doesn't meet the criteria of clearance to be involved in those meetings where things of national security are being divulged? I mean, that's crazy.
We haven't actually heard that somebody didn't try to say that.
That's fucking crazy.
I think it's a culture of fear, right? They've created the shock and fear aspect inside the government. So people are just inherently afraid to speak up against these people. And it's also a culture of them feeling like they're above the law because they now have the Supreme Court on their side. So there's no fear of reprisal or any sort of repercussions for this type of activity. And we all know that a law is as useless as the piece of paper it's written on if it's not enforceable. So if you can't enforce the law and they're not afraid of the law, then it's going to continue. Meetings will continue until morale.
There's nothing to say that somebody didn't say something about it. We don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
I've asked this of other military folks before, and I've never liked the answer. And it's no fault of them telling me the wrong answer. They're telling me the right answer, and it troubles me. So I'm going to ask you because it worries me more than anything. We acknowledge that the military personnel swears an oath to the Constitution, not to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth or whatever, if they do something absolutely fucked up, make a plan to do something. Is there ever a point when the lower level brass or the rank and file people say, no, we're not fucking doing that? Is there ever a time, given the position that Donald Trump has put himself into, where he's controlling the DOJ and the military and all this stuff, is there a time when the military actually pushes back and said, no, we're not fucking doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I will tell you, there are good people in the military. I know it's.
Oh, sure.
It may seem like from the outside you don't hear much about the good people, right? We always hear about some of the bad stuff that happens with the military a little bit more in
Right.
the news and stuff like that. But there were good people in the military, and I absolutely do believe that if Donald Trump were to give an unlawful order or try to turn, declare martial law and then turn the military on U.S. citizens, I think there would be plenty of people in the rank and file that would push back and or disobey those orders as unlawful. The complicated portion here is that they've basically replaced the JAG with loyalists, and the JAG are the ones who are basically trusted to determine whether an order is lawful or not. So if the hard part is like convincing, the infantrymen or I don't want to use the term grunt, but the grunts, that something is lawful or unlawful, because they won't be able to make that determination on their own. And replacing the JAGs with loyalists basically is a little bit scary, because they're the ones who then tell everybody down chain what is or isn't lawful.
Yeah. That's what's frightening about this.
I mean, and that being said, there's a reason we know his wife was in those meetings, and it's probably because somebody in there let it be known.
Yeah, and I've been up here a little bit.
That was the only thing they could do.
I see Mac in the comments there says he's a veteran with expertise in this area, so I'm happy to drop down and if you guys want to bring some of this up.
I appreciate you coming on. It's always informative when we get people from the crowd that have specialized information like you do. So I thank you for coming on. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
All right. That's what's interesting, guys. This is why I like to take a lot of these people, just these random people that are our listeners or followers or whatever, because we always seem to come up with a great bit of information. So I'm going to go to Jose. We'll see what Jose has to say, assuming he clicks in. Let's see here. Yeah, he's not clicking in here. He's maybe busy at the moment.
Can we discuss this Elon quitting Doge thing?
I don't know anything about it. I sound like Donald Trump here. Is there something I'm missing here? Please.
Yeah, no. So the millennial and Kiki were over for dinner tonight, and he said he saw something about Elon was done in May.
I saw that too. I
looked it up, and I think it's true. I think he's like come out and said, basically he does not want to go the way of my pillow, so he's he's dropping out of Doge at the end of May. So he says.
Well, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of questions about that, and I wonder if it's two-sided. One, I think that maybe he's starting to see that there might be legal implications to what he's been doing. That's number one. And number two, I think there's a lot of pressure on Elon about Tesla. And one of his board members came out and said, hey, we want to boot him off as CEO because he's not doing his job. The company's fucked up. We're losing fucking money. They're losing money out the ass at Tesla. And so I wonder if they gave him an ultimatum. That's because if he loses the CEO position, even though he's a huge stockholder in the company, he loses power to control the company.
But do you think they can do anything now to save Tesla? I don't think so. I think Tesla's fucking done, whether he's the CEO or not.
I agree with you, but they may believe otherwise.
Well, true. That's absolutely true.
They may be wondering what name they can put to Tesla other than Musk at this point.
Yeah, true.
To save it. I mean, he's basically saying like, I've saved $1 trillion, so now I've done what I can do. I'm going to step down. That's his stance on it.
Yeah, he saved $1 trillion, but we lost $5 trillion in equity in the stock market in like 6 weeks. Myself included.
Exactly.
I refuse to look at my 401k. I refuse to look at it. I can't.
Yeah, it's a little frightening what's going on with that. I'm gonna pull somebody else up here. I believe the name is Jordan, and assuming they click in, Jordan, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Hi, friend. I haven't seen you in so long. How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, Jordan's mom. I remember you.
Oh, hi. I remember you. So listen, I wanted to say something about Elon Musk stepping down. He's not stepping down. Remember, he's technically an unappointed official advisor, not on salary. There's a requirement
Right.
that says he can only serve 135 days. Those days end in May. That's what that is. And
Okay.
that's what
That makes
that
sense.
Yeah,
yes, and that
exactly.
explains.
But we all know that he would be allowed to stay on as long as he wants.
But
He's making that decision to step down after that 130 days is up.
perhaps, but there could be another thing at work here. I think that he has underestimated the cost of doing what he's doing. His company is tanking, Tesla, and you see that he sold X to his AI company to try to save it. How can you sell your own business to your business?
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, yeah,
That I saw that today.
clearly it is unethical. But again, I think that when you operate on arrogance and ignorance, I think that sometimes you underestimate that the little people, we outnumber you. And so if all we can do is protest, that's what we're doing. But who knew that the protest of his business would become global? Because every nation is protesting. His Starlink is being protested. Contracts are being cut. So it is a cost to him to do what he's doing. But also we have to recognize, I do believe that he always meant to serve the 135 days, because that would explain the accelerated pace at which he's cutting jobs. Because he
Right.
knew he only
Yeah.
had 135 days with which to do so.
Yeah, that's you never really know what's going on, and I think Rebecca made a good point. When we get to that 135 days, we know rules don't mean anything to Donald Trump. But I personally think no matter what Elon Musk does now, he can't save Tesla.
No.
He's going to be forever connected to Tesla, whether it's the CEO or not. And people don't want to buy that shit anymore.
Yeah, Tesla's going to be
Hell
forever
no.
hated.
Yep.
But I think that Starlink is tarnished as well. I believe that what this has done is it has lit a fire under other countries to come up with alternatives. They are going to shut him out. They're going to not allow him. Like, I don't even believe that he'll be allowed to travel. Other countries are going to keep you from coming into their spaces. The only place you're going to be welcome is Russia. Nobody else will deal with you
The
because
only
they
thing about
see that you're a
Starlink is that
pariah.
Starlink has areas where like you can only get rural areas where you can only get internet, and or it is the best internet in the area for Starlink, and so that's people will still use it regardless. Like, but Tesla
Beloved,
doesn't have that.
that is because we don't have an alternative. When I say
Right,
that
right, exactly. That's what
it,
I mean. Like,
it
so
has
he's
lit a
okay with
fire,
that.
if it has lit a fire, I promise you,
Somebody will
because
come up with the
because
alternative.
globally, one moment, because globally people are so upset, and they dislike him so much. When they find a product that is going to be suitable for them, they're going to make that product free and available to other countries and to rural areas. Just
Right.
like the Chinese, they threw a monkey wrench into his AI thing. What did they do? They offered DeepSeek for free. That devalued his companies. People do not like him, and I think it is more broad in scope than we recognize. People
Yeah.
have the ability to undermine his businesses. If you undermine his businesses, you mess with his bottom line, and that's where his power comes from, his money. Take away his money, and he's just a regular ugly man with a 80 IQ.
I agree with that. I agree with that. And the thing is that a lot of the European nations, they don't need Starlink. They just don't need it. Some of them do, like in the Eastern Bloc, right? But
Right, right.
but like France, Spain, Germany, like all these countries, their infrastructure is so much better than ours. People don't realize that. Is that European infrastructure is really good. And so they don't need Starlink. So they're basically saying, like, fuck that. We don't need that shit. And we'll just put it to the wayside, and he made his bed, now Elon can sleep in it, right? That's what they're
Right.
saying. With Tesla, with Starlink, with, well, SpaceX is kind of inconsequential, but they're basically saying fuck all that. We don't need it. We don't need anything from him. And they're
Well,
saying that about the United States too, because our allies are turning their backs on us right now.
I think it's the other way around. I think we did it first. So if you turn your back and we're already gone,
Well,
I
yeah,
think
well,
they
I
decided
agree.
that they could. I
No,
think they decided that they had to essentially stand on their own. But while I'm here, I just want to pivot for one moment because I want to ask this
Sure.
question. I want to know if I am the only person who is in shock and awe at how really fragile our democracy is. Who knew
Oh,
that these two men could tear apart this country in such a brief moment?
well, the thing
I
the thing that I've been thinking about a lot is that when this is all when the ashes are settled, right? Because it's going to come to that point, and when all the ashes settle, Congress needs to do something to enshrine this never happening again, and they need to make
yeah.
more,
They need to do several things.
they need to make more hurdles for the executive branch to have carte blanche on destroying the country.
Yeah.
So
I
if
think I
they
said
don't,
this before. I think I said that in life we have these sayings, and one of the sayings is it is it is easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission.
yes,
True.
So I feel as though we made a mistake by allowing the peaceful transfer of power. We knew what was going to happen. People higher than us knew what was going to happen. We had a good idea that it would be this bad, and yet we did the right thing. Why not? Why not for once? Why not fight fire with fire for
right.
once? Because you were in a powerful position. You had the military on your side. You could do it, and you could blame somebody else for it. You could find a way to preempt this. But why allow the people to suffer? Because we may never recover.
Right.
And then they're all going to move to Greenland, so we're going to be stuck here by ourselves.
I agree with you. You know, the thing, this is what I've always said is we've got Schumer, we've got Nancy Pelosi, we've got Hakeem Jeffries. They're all fighting this war as if it were the 1990s, but we're in a different parallel universe right now. This isn't a standard political war. This is a fucking street fight. And unless you're ready to actually street fight, you're going to get your ass kicked every time. And you talked about the fragility of democracy. I'm also concerned by the weakness and the fact that there's no teeth in the DOJ. There's no teeth in Congress. The only person who has any power is the president, which should not be. And it's only when he's the president, because Joe Biden has every bit of authority that Donald Trump had, but they refuse to use it. So like you're saying, they need to get out of the old ways and come into current times and grab a club or whatever they fucking got to do and fight this street fight.
I think that we have been saying for decades that there need to be term limits in Congress. We have been saying it for decades. And now it
Yeah.
has come to bite us because the majority of the Democrats are in their 70s. They're
Well,
too old
Right.
for the fight. They're sitting around dazed and confused. And you have two or three people and you expect them to carry the bulk of the weight. We have really essentially done this to ourselves out of selfishness and greed. Yes, the conservative side is selfish and greedy, but so are the Democrats, because why wouldn't each of you mentor someone to put into your seat and leave
right.
at a reasonable time? Why do
Well,
you have to unalive in order to leave your seat? That's unfair
Yeah.
to American people. You have placed all of us in this jeopardy. All of us. Even Biden. Love Biden. Love him, love him, love him. But if you didn't have, I understand you're a man of staunch faith, but if you didn't have the courage or the wherewithal, if you didn't have that fight to do what had to be done, you could have stepped down and let Kamala be president, and I promise you, she wouldn't have blinked.
yeah.
No,
She would not
she wouldn't have
Yeah,
blinked.
She would
that
have
would have
did
gone a
everything
long
that had
way. A long
she would have
way.
done she would have done everything that had to be done to secure us. And then the very same plan that you plan to implement, you're putting on all these things. You're going to take away the African American Museum. You're going to put us into segregation. You're trying to antagonize the people of color to make them come to the streets. And when we come to the streets, you're going to treat us like they treat the Russians. You're going to send the drones to take us out one by one by one. You're going to declare martial law. Well, if he can do it, why couldn't she have done it?
Good point. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the problem we have with the Democrats. They just come out weak, and you know, I sometimes feel like when I watch what's going on with the Republicans and how the Democrats are kind of sitting on their hands, I almost feel like, and I would never have said this prior to the election, but I almost feel like it's got to all crumble in a fucking hot mess, a disaster before some people will wake up. And that's unfortunate, but it seems like that's where we're at right now. It's going to have to come crumbling down in a massive way before people go, oh, holy fuck, Donald Trump's not a good guy.
Well, has it not? Because it's already a train wreck inside a dumpster fire. How much worse can it
True.
get?
On that note, like one of those things that they could have done easily in all those years was codify Roe v. Wade, right? We all agree on that. They could have codified
Absolutely.
Roe v. Wade.
Should have been done.
And today, or yesterday, or the day before, a woman was arrested in Florida and charged because she had a miscarriage.
Wow.
She had a miscarriage. And they did an autopsy on her 19-week-old fetus and found that it was completely natural causes, and they charged her.
I think they charged her because they
Georgia.
tried to say that she didn't dispose of it properly. But here's the thing. You've instilled such fear in women, they're afraid to even go to the hospital. Because
Right.
if she had gone to the
Here's what
hospital,
they
you
charged
still
her
would
with.
have charged her. You still
She
would have
had
got
a
her.
miscarriage.
Exactly. But again, you have to put yourself in the position of these young women. And it is a frightening experience.
Of course it is. Of course
You
it
you,
is.
you can be charged with they're going to ask you, what did you do, to cause this, and you're already in distress. It's terrible what we're doing to people. It is, all of it is terrible. Let me say this to everybody who's watching. Let me make a couple of recommendations, and I'm not a psychologist in any way. I'm just a regular black woman, you know what I'm saying, with a big old opinion. There is a series that is on Netflix, and the name of the series is called Adolescence. It
Yeah.
is remarkable. It talks
I
about
watched it.
it's remarkable. It talks about how our children are radicalized by other children, by the conversations we have, and by the behaviors that we exhibit. Our young men grow up to have this attitude that they hate everybody. They don't hate people because people have done something to them. They hate people because our children sometimes are mediocre. They're not
Right.
athletes, they're not bright, they're not attractive, they're just ordinary. And ordinary doesn't get attention, you're not charming, you're just unremarkable in every way. It breeds resentment. And what I find in that movie, that resentment, that kind of entitlement, that bullying attitude of everybody who's different, that's what I see in these people in the White House. They are those children who were bullied. And got together in a cult, and they decided, we're going to steal the country and we're going to make everybody suffer for our pain and our disappointment.
Yeah. I saw that movie too, and I found a lot of revelations in it. Maybe it's just that I'm undereducated on this, but they were talking about incels. And I never really understood what incels. I knew what kind of people were incels, but I never understood what the term
Doge.
incel meant.
Incel.
No, shoot, but
It means I'm sorry.
it means involuntary celibacy.
Yeah.
Meaning
Right,
a guy
you're
can't.
celibate by circumstance, not
Yeah.
by choice.
It's
It is
all
because
Right.
they're weird or awkward or like the little boy in the movie said, I'm ugly. He was short.
Right.
He was unremarkable in every way. But also, think about this. They're also inappropriate. The way they talk to people, the subject matter, the things that they think are funny, nobody else thinks is funny. They have all of these weird proclivities that make them, be ostracized by regular society. So what happens when the misfits get together?
It
They-
sounds like to me it's all the incels that are in Doge. They're all
Yeah.
Yes, yes. They
All the
finally
Well,
have
some-
a
at
place of
Doge.
prestige. They finally have reached their moment where there's somebody. And look at all of them are weird. I swear, all of them look the same. All of them,
Yeah.
eyes too close together, forehead sloping, weird hairline.
I
They
got-
all fuzzy and hairy. They don't bathe. They all look like they sleep in their clothes. All of them.
Hey, you know what, Jordan? I got news for you. These incels at Doge, they're all going to prison later on in life.
Yeah, they're not going to make it eventually. In that movie, they brought something else up, and it kind of tells you why there's, from some men or kids, there's an absolute hate for women. And that's what's disturbing about it. They talk about this 80-20 rule. And basically what that means is 80% of the women are attracted to 20% of the males, leaving 80% of the men, which isn't true, because if that were true, I wouldn't be married for 42 years, so if you're not tall and you don't look like George Clooney, learn how to fucking talk. But what they seem like they're doing is they're whipping themselves up to be angry at women because they feel like they're being ignored. And it's very similar to what's going on with Donald Trump. I try to explain to people why I think people follow Donald Trump. And I think it's people who haven't done well in life. There's rich people for obvious reasons, but the people in Alabama or Mississippi that follow him, these are people that think they've gotten stepped on by the government. They haven't treated them fairly. The people of color get all the breaks and we get none of the breaks. And then when Donald Trump comes out and says, I hate the government too, I'm going to fight those motherfuckers for you, they get behind him because that's their only hope. And I think something similar with women, with these incels, they're fostering hate for women. They're not going to try to better their situation or explain their situation. All women are bad, and that's why we hate them, and that's why we talk about them the way we do.
No, sir. I mean, most of what you said is right, but let me just add to it instead of saying that. Let me add to it, expand it a little bit.
Let me ask you something, Jordan. We aren't married, are we? Because you sound a lot like my wife.
No, no. There's a part in the movie where Jamie talks about Katie. Remember when he says how they stole her photo and they sent it around to everybody? He like, I saw her breasts. I saw them. And he said, but I didn't talk about her like everybody else. I didn't cast her aside. I asked her out. Remember the therapist said, the therapist repeated, she said, you asked her out. He was like, yeah, because she was wounded. She was vulnerable. He waited until something happened to her to humble her, and he swooped in for the kill. Imagine his surprise when even in her battered state, she still didn't want anything to do with him. It is the same thing with these people. Look at Hegseth. Nobody wanted him to be put into the position he's put in because he's always been a drunk and a creep and all these other things. So he's mad with everybody. But now he can take it out on all of us. But before that, who's the easiest target for everybody? Women. And give me one other second. Also, the other easy target is who's the person that every time Trump has really had to be held to task in court, who was the people who got the cases to bring him in? Who was the person who got him to take a mugshot? These were black women. How dare a black woman be smart enough to pull off some of these things? How dare a black woman be smart enough to make it to a position that these people could only aspire to get to? That is why it's about education, because we can't let any more of these brown people get in a position to be equal to us.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I've said that about the November 5th election. One of the most troubling things we found that this country is more racist and more sexist than I ever imagined.
It is also anti-intellectual. The people who are not that bright hate the people who are bright. They have now flipped it and said if you're a college-educated person, they think you're elite. So since when did being able to conjugate a verb mean that you're an elite?
Little do they know that college education has little to do with intelligence.
Well, here's the thing. I'm an old white guy living in the Midwest. I barely got through 1 year of college. I should be king of this bitch.
Yeah.
Listen, you are. You're king of this life for sure. You're king of your house for sure.
Oh, no. I'm not king of my house. I'm like an executive vice president.
Well, hey, Rebecca has a degree in communications. How's that working out for us?
I have an MBA, pal.
Well,
Jordan's mom, I want to thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to hear from you. You're very insightful, very smart, very articulate, and that's a nice contrast for me as opposed to the shit I troll out here.
Yes, listen, it is always a pleasure to be in your company. Thank you. It's so nice to see the panel again. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
You too.
You too. Thank you very much. This is what I'm saying. Every time we pull somebody up here, they're very smart. They do a lot in making me look good, and all of us look good. And it's always nice to bring people in. I'm going to bring somebody else in because I like hearing from these people. This is somebody called Nini, I believe, Nini, and we'll see if she clicks in. Nini. Hello, Nini.
She didn't even remember a single word. That's like a really famous quote.
I think we caught Nini while she was watching TV, and that's fine. She can try us back if she wants.
I have a comment.
Yeah.
We were talking about like the incels and like how I guess like the narcissism that goes along with it and the misogyny. And I've known a few narcissists in my life. I was living and dating one for 9 years.
Wow.
And every narcissist I've ever known has some sort of inferiority complex or mommy issue, and I say
No
that
question.
broadly, but it's kind of more than that. It's like there's incidents that happen in their lives that created this, and I'm sure it's not all of them. I'm sure some of them are just born completely like total assholes or whatever. But like, particularly the guy that I dated and lived with for 9 years, he was abused by his mother. He was told he will never amount to anything. And he was definitely a narcissist and a misogynist. And I believe a lot of that stems from that upbringing. Having been, like intimately involved in everything he did for 9 years. Like, I know he didn't have a father, no father figure. Didn't even know who his father was until he heard some guy who might be his father had passed away. He had not really a clue. I think he really like felt like he needed to be superior to women somewhere in his subconscious, and he needed to be in control of everything in his subconscious because of all the things that happened in his life. Now, I'm not saying that happened with Trump for sure. I mean, obviously, he probably was, didn't have any of those issues. But I feel like there's a lot of narcissists out there, misogynists out there, that relate to that incel.
Yeah,
mentality.
definitely.
How's that working out for him today?
Oh, it's not. It is not.
Well, here's a question for you, Rebecca. And we know what this guy is based on what you told us. And we know that you're an intelligent, educated woman. With somebody like that, what caused you to stay in that situation for 9 years? What was it that held you in that situation, or were even attracted to him in the first place?
Well, obviously, they don't show their true colors at first.
Not at first, no.
Yeah.
But they come through pretty quickly thereafter.
And then for me, it was that I actually, we started a company together, which luckily was only in his name ever. And I kind of insisted on that because the company after 14 years, just went bankrupt.
Wow.
And I just started my own company, and now he works for me.
Wow. Why would you hire him?
His expertise.
There's other reasons, but his expertise mostly. But and honestly, over the years, after I left him, and you have to understand that when I left him,
Tell Mike why.
No, I'm not going to tell him about the dirty sponge, TJ. But when I left him, it was we owned a $2.5 million mansion in New Jersey. $2.5 million mansion, and on 3 acres of land in New Jersey. And when I say we had a $2.5 million mansion, it was a 16,000 square foot house on 3 acres of land with a pool house that had a full laundry and full bathroom, like with a stand-up I mean, I'm not even joking about when I say that.
She's not. I've seen it.
Yeah, he's seen all the pictures of it. when I left him, I moved into my old bedroom in my parents' house. Like,
Wow.
and I quit my job making $150,000 a year to do that because I
Yeah.
worked for him. And about 2 months later, he decided he could not run the business without me and brought me back on working from home in Pennsylvania. So
Wow. That's
yeah,
that's a
it's
little
quite a
weird.
story.
That's a
Yeah.
little weird. I'm gonna bring somebody else up here. All I can see is it says facts. We'll take a shot here and see if they're ready and available. Facts.
I hope this is facts.
How you doing? Good.
How you doing?
What's
How
on
you
your
doing,
mind?
sir?
Doing
Well,
great. Doing great.
I just wanted to say, first of all, I really appreciate what you're doing, Mr. Boomer. I think in our political climate, what you're doing is very important because we need to be
What's your
transferring information to people.
When you say that, do you mean it's good to see an old white guy talking differently than every other old fucking white guy?
Not just that. I've sat in your not in your panel, but in the chats for a while and listened to you on multiple occasions, and I just appreciate the way you run the way you run it, and I think you're a pretty intelligent guy, and I like going on. I like listening and gaining information from people. So I really
Well,
appreciate what you do.
well, I appreciate that vote of confidence, and I only wish my kids felt the same way. But you deal with what you got to deal with.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of new to TikTok. I've just been I do some other platforms and local radio here where I live, and I think I want to come with a kind of a different perspective on things.
Sure.
It, um, I hear a lot about Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and I think they're actually symptoms of a bigger problem. I think Donald Trump mostly is a tool, and I heard y'all talking about it earlier that he gives some people in this country a scapegoat for
Right.
unsuccessful lives and failed financial situations, and I just think that I think that we are missing our immediate threat to a certain extent. I think the immediate threat right now is a corporate billionaire class who want to eliminate us from the process of having any say in the way the system runs. And I think it's something that's been going on for a long time. I just yeah, and actually, I think that they are basically trying to eliminate us totally, the working class people. Because if you think about it, most of these, I guess, tech billionaires or whoever was behind Biden until they saw that Trump was going to win, because I don't think they have a moral ground at all. I think
Yeah.
this is intentional. It is something that they are doing because in their system, in their companies, they are the CEOs, and you never see a CEO go down and get the janitor to come to the board meeting and help run the company. And in
Right.
our government construct, I think we are the employers and they're the employees, and I think that's what they are trying to change. And I think it's something they've always tried to change. But I think Donald Trump is the vehicle for that now. It's a corporate class who want to make the rules, and they don't want us to have any say in the process anymore. So
The
it's
oligarchy wants to make us slaves. That's the bottom line.
well, I don't know if it's all, and I kind of agree with that to a certain extent, but I don't. I think it's more of them not trusting us to keep this thing running. I think we use this word Doge with the efficiency. That is a word that is meant to, I guess, put in place something that is more efficient, which is what I think, and it's just my opinion. I think tech is being accelerated for a reason, and not just in government, in all our industries. These guys, listen to this guy. I don't know if you ever heard of him. His name is Nick Land, Land. He
No.
promotes tech accelerationism. And a lot of these guys, these tech guys, they think he's the Jesus of this
Yeah.
century. And I think that they are trying to push to, and just like what Doge is doing, going and taking these jobs and implementing robotics and AI into a lot of these jobs. I think that is the immediate threat to us. We all talk about Donald Trump and his misogyny, his, how evil he is. But I think they look at him as, they don't like him either. They think he's a Neanderthal, but they're using
Yeah.
him because he has galvanized part of the base to help them build an appetite for tearing down a government and building up something that is more comparable to the wealthy class. So
Yeah, I agree with you. When people want to make it Democrat or Republican, it's really not. It is a class war. It's always been a class war, and the whole Democrat Republican division is fomented by these rich people because they know it works. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. And Elon Musk, I don't, and I hear people say, oh, well, he don't want any more money. He's already the richest man in the world. I mean, I watched the economic forum by him a while back where he was talking and he said that he wanted to be the first trillionaire. And not only that, he was pushing and he said that AI would take over most of the jobs in the United States. And he said, and they asked him, well, what about all these millions of people? What are they going to do? He said, they will be paid a wage to stay home. And I think that's where we're headed. Yeah, and you can go look at this video. He actually believes this. He believes that tech and AI will take over, and people will have to be paid a wage to stay home.
That sounds like socialism to me. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right, and that's exactly what I'm saying. And I think I don't even think it's just United States. I think it's a global thing that. I mean, the natural evolution, of course, tech is going to be more prevalent in the future, but I think they're accelerating it faster. And I think it is really to eliminate us from the process because once you don't work and contribute to the system, should you be allowed to have a say in how the system is ran?
Wouldn't be working and being paid to stay home and not work be the same thing as Social Security?
Yeah, it would be the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I want to mention something about what you're saying, Fax. I will tell you this. I'm an old guy, acknowledged old guy. When TV first came around, they go, oh, my God, the end of the world's coming. Then when the internet came around, oh, it's going to do all kinds of things to us. CDs come along. It's the end of radio. And then the Napster comes along. That's the end of the music business. I tend to think that AI is going to have a big impact on this country, but I don't know that it's as dangerous as what people are trying to predict. I mean, be honest with you, if Elon Musk goes into Social Security and comes out and says, Jesus Christ, these 8-year-old kids are getting small business loans.
Jesus Christ.
Well, when what it really said was SB, which means survival benefits, if that guy's that stupid, I don't think I'm taking any future predictions from this dumb motherfucker.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But I think we also got to live in reality too. I think evolution, especially in the tech industry, it's going to happen. It's just like when we used to watch the Jetsons. You saw that TV where you could see people, and we laughed at that. And now we hold them right now. We're talking through them.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah, well, technology's coming. I think people kind of adapt to things. And, I've been fucking around with AI, too, just to see what it does on a real small level. And it is pretty impressive. But I will tell you this. Everybody's going, oh, we'll have AI people online and stuff. I can tell you when it's AI every fucking time.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah, we'll all have 6 fingers on at least one hand.
Hey, you know what? I want to bring something up because I kind of thought about this a little bit. And so AI is a big thing. But going under the premise that AI has to tell the truth, right?
Yeah.
So in the future, all these Trump-a-fucks, all these people are on social media and they're on the internet and they're saying, don't get vaccinated for measles, don't get, but AI has to tell the truth, right? Because it's AI. It's not supposed to lie to us. It's not.
Can you
designed that way.
specifically program? Can you program it to do nothing but lie? I mean, you can program it to do pretty much anything.
Yeah, you could, I guess, but I don't think that would be the norm, right? Like in the future of AI, what would that generally be like? That AI would lie to us? No. So, do you think that going forward into the future, AI would probably squash some of these conspiracy theories and like all this crazy ass shit? Like AI would be like, no, this isn't true, and maybe like the Trump-a-fucks and all the fucking idiots that are out there on these conspiracy theories will be like, oh no, like maybe we were wrong. You know what I mean? Like maybe that will be a helping tool to educate people in the future.
Well, that depends because AI is self-educating, is it not?
Absolutely. It's
So
self-learning.
if it hears lies over lies
No,
over
but
lies over lies,
but
it will automatically think that is the truth. Will
yeah,
it not?
but I think that AI like would fact check itself. You know what I mean? Like so, it like if it heard something that's a lie, I mean AI is limitless. It can dig down and research it and find out the truth. So
Well, I think the evil word is efficiency. They use that word, and it is there because if you want to be honest, it's cheaper to use. I mean, we see it in our different industries, especially in grocery stores and big chains. They are going to a system that is eliminating the human aspect of things, and I think that even though we want things to stay more humanized, I think that under the guise of efficiency, that is what is going to. I mean, it's cheaper. It is more efficient. They don't have to worry about its child getting sick and it's staying home. These systems, I think, are inevitably going to be implemented in the future. I think the whole point of it is for us to have less human experience. So
my point is the dissemination of misinformation. So I agree with you, but is AI ultimately going to be the death of the Trump-lefuck standpoint? Because if AI corrects everyone and says, hey, no, this is wrong, this is the factual information, and everybody's getting their information from AI, will that finally, disseminate all the conspiracy theories and all this bullshit? That's what I'm getting at.
I think Trumpism is a spreading disease. If you want to
Well,
be
of
honest about
course,
my personal opinion, yeah,
it's not spreading, it's already spread. What are you talking about?
yeah. And y'all were talking about earlier. I heard the last guest that y'all had on, and she was talking about as far as what was going on with them being able to take over, and democracy is, like she said, it is an idea. That's all it is. We all collectively agree to follow these rules and norms. If a good percentage of the country decides that they don't want to listen to those rules anymore, democracy unalives immediately. It's only an
Yeah.
idea. That's why it's so fragile. So
Well, if AI is that effective and that efficient, and they can do our assembly lines or whatever the fuck we want to talk about, wouldn't it make sense to always be right to have our government run by AI instead of having a president, having an AI engine answering the questions and doing the proper things? And why have members of Congress who constantly fuck up or constantly are trying to fill their own pockets? I mean, if AI is good enough to run a factory, why wouldn't it be good enough to run a government?
yeah, you're right. And I think, but I think the appetite for power by individuals is going to still be there to a certain extent. But and we always, I heard you, Boomer, talking about Democrat, Republican. I think we all have our views through these ideological lenses that
Yeah.
makes us see things and not see things objectively. And I'm just kind of wary of some of our Democratic leaders. I don't think they have an appetite to change the system too much either. I think they're
I
in
agree.
on some
I
of it.
agree.
Yeah, I think they're in on some of it. So
You know what
Well, do you
AI?
think?
You know what AI is not going to do? They're not going to come to your motherfucking house and replace your toilet. I can tell you that.
absolutely.
They're definitely
Absolutely.
they're definitely not going to fix your elevator either.
But there's a reason why Elon Musk is building some of the biggest robotics companies in the world. There's a reason for that we are going to move. Now, I don't think it's going to come as fast as some of the conspiracy theorists think, but I think they're moving towards that. And it's all under the guise of efficiency, being able to guarantee things and not have the human element there that has fallacy, So I
I was
might be
just
wrong.
there might be a fix here for a big problem we have with all these incels and having trouble with human women. If they create the right AI women, then they can get a fucking date.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think a lot of Trump supporters having trouble in that department anyway. So,
Yeah, no question about it. Well, I'm going to wrap things up. Facts, no capping. Thank you very much for coming on.
hey, listen,
You
I
say
appreciate y'all.
you work in local radio?
Yes, here in Louisiana.
Do you really? How's that going?
Yeah. It's okay. I'm mostly in my community. I'm really after, I actually target a lot of African American men in my community. We have a high pew rate. We have a high crime rate, and I'm trying to get. I mean, we got to start at the bottom with kids. We got to start
Right.
at hearts and
Yeah.
minds,
Yep.
to change our system. So
Sure.
that's where I'm at. I'm new to TikTok,
Well,
only a couple of months, so.
well, the radio business. I worked in radio for a long time, and smaller town radio or medium market radio was always good because you had people talking to people. But more and more in the radio business, you've got automation. You've got, I know somebody who works in radio, and they come in and they spend an hour tracking the station, and then they don't get paid shit, and it runs all night. I get a little frustrated about radio. Somebody said, "Would you ever go back in radio?" No, I fucking did
Fuck
that.
no.
I ain't doing that again.
Yeah, well, for me, it's more local, and I do a lot of stuff in the local community because I need to reach. I mean, the only way we start is start at a younger age and trying to, meet people where they're at. Not everybody is on the same education level. No, and we come from different places, different environments.
Right.
If I can tap to a couple of people and get them in, I'm happy. So, but I appreciate what you do, Mr. Boomer. I definitely appreciate y'all letting me come on. I appreciate the intelligent conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And TJ and Rebecca, thank you for helping out today. It's always, it's crucial. We wouldn't be sitting here still if it weren't for you two folks busting some of these Trumplifucks because they're always all over the place.
Mike, we're always happy to be here.
They come out early and then they taper
Yeah,
off towards the end.
that's
So
true.
It becomes easier.
They do come out
Yeah.
early and we kick their ass and then they're gone. So
Well, facts are
That's-
stubborn things. So,
Now somebody kept telling me you got to put up Mac Patriot, and he was making some great comments and stuff. Just a note to Mac Patriot, I would have been happy to put you up. You got to request to come up, because if I go down deep to somebody who's not even paying attention or doing something else, I can't get you to come up. So next time I do a live Mac Patriot, make sure you request that you want to come on, so I know you'll be ready to come on. But thanks to all of you. Thank you, Fax, and all the other people that came up. Every goddamn one of them that came up was smarter than me, and I love that. They offered some great information. Just to tell folks, this will also be the Rational Boomer podcast for tomorrow. You can get it on Spotify. You can get it on YouTube. If you haven't listened to the whole thing, check it out. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.
Bye, Mike.
all right, thank you.
See you later.